Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull, and with college football officially being over, I figured that this was a good time as any to go on ahead and start talking about Tennessee's NFL draft prospects. I believe that we'll have 10 guys that will enter into the NFL draft. I think that we've got a good chance to be able to get some guys drafted or picked up, maybe on a practice squad or something like that. This right here is probably the biggest thing that these blue chip players are going to be looking for, whether they're coming out of high school or if they are in that transfer portal, is a team that can get them to the next level. I think that Tennessee can most definitely do that. Have not done a great job, in the past probably decade or so since Former left. Back in the 90s, we used to have first round draft picks every single season, usually several of them, and we were able to continue to bring in really good talent because of that. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the transfer portal. All right, so we all know that Tennessee is targeting the offensive line in the transfer portal. We're looking for a left guard and definitely looking for a tackle. We talked about Lance Hurd last weekend. He did visit us, and he also visited Oklahoma. Now, my man LD told me in the comments section last night that Lance had some issues at the airport out there in Norman, and he was stuck there for 5 hours. So he is favoring Tennessee. But I think that you fell victim to good old Richard G. West. And for those of y'all who don't know, I'm not a big social media guy. I'm new to it. Richard G. West is a guy on Twitter. He actually got me maybe like a couple of weeks ago. He just posts a whole lot of fake stuff just to get guys riled up. And, again, he got me. So I went on ahead and just blocked him. And LD and anybody else, if you are following Richard G. West, or if you're not, go on ahead and block him, because whatever he puts out there is just going to be completely and totally false. So there's no truth in, Lance Hurd being stranded at the airport. That would probably be like the first time that that's ever happened in the history of Power 5 programs. But, we do not have that working for us. But it does sound like Tennessee is in a really good position to be able to land Lance Hurd. It could come down to a, NIL battle. And I fully expect for Tennessee's NIL to win out in that battle. If it turns into a bidding war, and, it just sounds like, from what Austin Price and everyone else is saying that's close to the program, that Tennessee is in really good shape right there. He could be coming out and letting us know where he's going to be going in the next few days. So we're going to keep a very close eye out on that. Now, whenever we move on, we talked about Percy Lewis. That is the offensive tackle from Mississippi State. He is slotted to potentially be visiting Tennessee this coming weekend. So if we don't get Lance Hurd, expect for Percy Lewis to be a guy that does come in and visits us. Hopefully we can close the deal there, again, if Lance Hurd falls through. Now, there's another one, that we talked about here recently, and that is Diego Pounds. That is the offensive tackle from North Carolina, and it sounded like he was already signed with Ole Miss, but it's since come out that he hasn't actually signed with them. He's another one that Tennessee could potentially be getting a visit from next weekend once the dead period ends. So a whole lot to, kind of like digest right there. But again, feels like we are trending in the correct direction for Lance Hurd. That is huge news. Hopefully we can go out and maybe add one more body to fill in at that left guard position. Now, there are a couple of other guys that have entered into the transfer portal. Until things get more concrete with Lance, I'm not going to too much talk about them, but it does sound like Tennessee has some options. All right, so let's go on ahead and shift gears to the NFL draft and all the prospects that we have. I believe that Tennessee will have 10 guys that will opt into the NFL draft. And some of y'all are probably thinking, well, hey, Tennessee, we don't really have a whole lot of guys that are NFL caliber players. But just to go ahead and get this out of the way, I don't think it's so much about the production on the field. There are several factors that these NFL scouts, GMs, and coaches are going to be looking at, whenever they are trying to decide if a player is draftable or not. And we'll kind of go through all of those things. Now, I did a whole lot of research just trying to find a site that had several Tennessee players on it. I couldn't find very many just because it's so early on in the process right now. Most sites really only have like a top 100. I was able to find one that goes up to a top 600. They're only at 400 right now. And, they'll probably have, that last 200 coming out here, I would say within the next week or so. But everyone on, Tennessee's list that is going to be going to the NFL draft is not listed, on their site. But again, that is drafttech.com. So we will be using them moving forward. Now, obviously, man, the NFL draft, being able to have players that are draftable, That is going to be the biggest thing that we can entice these young players with to come and play for Tennessee. So it's a really big deal that we can have some guys actually get drafted or get picked up somewhere. And we have to hope that it's a perfect situation for them so that they can be very productive at the next level. That's going to be huge, not only for, bringing in more blue chip caliber prospects, but also a whole lot of these teams will target, players from different schools. So like Kansas City is a team that targets Tennessee players pretty heavily, and so are the Bears right now at this point. So hopefully we can continue to get some guys that are productive on the next level. Let's go ahead and start off with Joe Milton. All right, so Joe Milton is ranked the number 12th quarterback on this list, and he is the number 174th overall ranked prospect. He's 6'5", 245 pounds. The average size for an NFL quarterback is 6'2.5", 219 pounds, and the average 40 time is a 4.8. Now, obviously, Joe Milton is a guy that he's going to blow away all of those measurables. That's probably the second thing, or, maybe third or fourth, that a scout will look at, outside of what a player actually did on the field. I think that's the first thing that kind of piques these scouts' interest. And then they're going to look at what was the level of competition. How does your scheme fit versus what they like to do? How does it fit, from college football to NFL football? And then they're going to start to look at your measurables. They're going to start to look at your, times, things like that. A whole lot of off the field stuff. They will kind of, especially if you're going to be a first round draft pick, they're going to have someone kind of shadow you, follow you around, see what you're really like on a day-to-day basis off the field. I've also heard about some scouts and GMs, going down to a player's elementary school and figuring out, hey, what type of a student was he back in elementary school? What was his family like? All of those good things. So there are several layers to this, but I do think that Joe Milton is a guy that he will pass all of these tests. I also think that he's going to do a really good job whenever they kind of sit down and break down the X's and O's. Some people just don't think that Joe Milton is that smart of a player, or that, he kind of doesn't process things quickly, but I think that he is good at that. And obviously the on the field drills, pro days, senior bowls, combine, obviously things like that. That is where Joe Milton can really work himself up higher on a list with this one. We're talking about him being ranked at number 12, number 174 overall. I think that Joe Milton, his floor is probably, for me, I would say about 5th round, but I do think that he could potentially work himself up into that 1st round just because his skill set is pretty much unseen in this draft class. There's no quarterbacks that will have the physical attributes that Joe Milton is going to be able to bring to a team. And if he does a good job in all the off the field stuff, obviously, as well as, we just talked about with the on the field stuff, he is potentially going to be able to work himself up a lot higher on people's draft boards. So keep a very close eye out for that. Next guy is Jalen Wright, and he's listed as the number 21 ranked running back, number 219th ranked overall prospect. Is 5'11", 210 pounds. The average size for an NFL running back is 5'10 and a half, 213 pounds, and running a 4.49 40. All right, so Jalen is a guy that we saw play SEC football. He had the highest carry per average rating at like 7-point-something yards per carry. So doing that in the SEC, I don't really care what the scheme is. I think that teams will really take a very strong look at that and, maybe place a little bit more value on him. Now, he's also going to blow the combine away. He's a track guy. I think he's going to run in the 4.3s. Would like to see him gain maybe 5 to 10 more pounds, probably just 5, just to kind of get himself up a little bit more in weight. But he's another one, okay? On the field drills, and really this goes for everybody, but all the on the field stuff, all the off the field stuff is going to play another really big factor in how highly he can be drafted. I think he's going to be just fine there. Haven't heard a whole lot about any off the field stuff with him, but Tennessee maybe is doing a good job of keeping those things under wraps. I think he's a really good football player. Teams, in the NFL don't place a whole lot of value in running backs, so he may not be able to go in that 1st round, but I do think that he could potentially be a top 3 running back prospect in this draft. So look out for that. That's going to be really, really big for this program moving forward. All right, so we will also have Jabari Small going into the NFL draft. He's listed at 5'11", 213 pounds, and he is not rated on this list just yet. Now, Small is another one that has all of the prototype measurables. I also think that he will be able to run faster than the 4.48 time. That's the average for an NFL running back. How much lower, I'm not quite sure. I think he's a lower 4.4 guy, but he's going to look really good on the field drills. He can catch the football out of the backfield, and he's also really good at pass protection. So I think that he's got a good chance, again, if he does well at his pro day, at the combine, if he gets to go, and, in whatever type of Senior Bowl deal that he goes to, he's going to have to play well to be able to get his draft stock up. Not quite sure if he will get drafted, but I do kind of feel like he could be a later round draft pick just because he is coming from the SEC and he's got all the prototype measurables. Off the field stuff should be very clean, and I do think that a team will take a chance on Jabari Small. Okay, next guy is McCallum Castles. He's the number 12 tight end on this list, ranked number 297 overall, 6'5", 238 pounds. The average for a tight end is 6'4.5", 249 pounds, and the average 40 is a 4.75. Okay, so Callie is a guy that is a little bit older, so that could kind of work against him. But if you look at him on the field, he does everything that you want a tight end to do. I also think that he will be able to come in and probably be very close to the prototype size, a little bit taller, and he's probably going to be able to run a little bit faster than that 40 time that they have. That's the average at like 4.7. I think that he could get down to about 4.6 with some good training. And, you know, again, the on the field stuff, I think that he will blow that away. His film's going to look good. Off the field, I think he's going to be just fine. I am anticipating that someone will take a chance on him. I think that he's a draftable football player. Would not be surprised to see him get picked up in the later rounds. Would love for it to be with a team that likes to use their tight ends a lot, like San Francisco or the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the next guy is going to be Jacob Warren, and he is listed at 6'7", 253 pounds. He's got the length that these guys are going to like. He's a really solid football player. He's another older guy, but I do think that although he didn't produce a whole lot and he might not have a whole lot of great game film showing him going out and catching passes, I think that he's another one that if he can fall to the right place, right, and the right team is there to pick him up, again, I'm thinking especially San Francisco, he could end up being, you know, maybe like a blocking tight end that you could use on a couple of gadget plays. Teams will kind of, you know, maybe not necessarily draft, but they will try to pick up a guy like that. He's got a really good skill set, and I think that he's going to be close to timing right shy, like right up under that 4.7. I think that, you know, he might be a lower 4.7 guy, maybe a little bit of a higher 4.6 guy. It's going to take a whole lot of really good, I think, pro day type stuff, and obviously he's going to have to test really well, but he also, I think, has a chance to get picked up by somebody at some point. All right, so now let's talk about the secondary, starting off with Kamal Haddon. He's ranked number 12 as a cornerback on this list and the number 84 overall prospect. He's the highest rated prospect on this list. He's 6'1", 197 pounds, and the average size for a cornerback in the NFL is 6 feet tall, 194 pounds, running a 4.48 40. All right, so Haddon is going to have prototype size. He's very physical. Okay, he will come up, he will make tackles. He's physical at the point of contact, on the line of scrimmage, getting off blocks, things like that. But the biggest thing for him is that he's going to be really good in man-to-man coverage. He was our best cover corner on this roster last season, and going up against SEC caliber competition, I really believe that teams will covet that a lot. Again, he's going to have to test well, and I think that he will. I think that he could run a low 4.4, maybe even a 4.3. And if he does that, expect for his stock to increase tremendously. He could potentially be a second-round pick as far as I see it. Now, you know, who else is out there? Not quite sure, but he's a really good football player. He can play zone, he can play man. He's got the size, got the length, everything else. Off the field stuff, maybe some issues there, but you kind of want to have some dogs out there playing corners. So a lot of times those guys don't have the cleanest, I guess, off the field stuff. You want a guy with some edge because you've got to be almost overly confident, you know, very, very confident to be able to play out there on an island by yourself. And I think that Kamal Haddon is the prototype prospect for an NFL cornerback. All right, next guy is Gabe Judy-Lally, listed at 6'2", 190 pounds. He's also not listed here, but kind of talked about him before. I don't think he's great in man-to-man coverage, but what he lacks, I think, in man-to-man coverage, he will be able to make up for with his interviews, you know, with his football IQ, with his off-the-field stuff. I think he's going to pass all of that with flying colors. As far as a 40 time, I do think that he can beat that 4.48. He's going to have to train pretty hard at it, but I think that he can do it. And he's going to have a really good showing in the on-the-field drills just to show that he does have the proper skill set to be able to play man-to-man coverage. Once they kind of cut that film on, he's not going to look great right there. But if he can kind of, you know, again, land in the right spot, if there's a team that kind of covers a cornerback that plays more zone, that's going to come up and be physical and make tackles, things like that, he could most definitely fit that billing. And I think that someone will pick him up at some point. Will he get drafted? I'm not quite sure, but I definitely am rooting for Gabe Judy-Lally. All right, last secondary piece for us is Tank McCullough. He's listed at 6 feet tall, 206 pounds. And for a strong safety, the average 40 time is a 4.55. Now, Tank is no different from most of the guys that we're going to be talking about today. He is a little bit older, and he's also probably going to be pretty clean with the off-the-field stuff. He did have a little bit of a mishap last season, but I think all of that got cleared up, so he should be good right there. He's got pretty good size. And, he showed a whole lot of willingness to come up and get in on tackles. He may need to work on his cover skills just a little bit. And for him, I think that if he can get his 40 time down within that 4.4 type of a range, he could really increase his draft stock because he's played so much football and there's going to be a whole lot of film on him going up against the best competition in the entire country. So hopefully he can get picked up. I do think that he's more of a later round guy and probably more of, like a free agent type of a pickup, practice squad guy. But if you can get picked up on someone's roster, you've got a really good chance to be able to stay there. So I'm hoping the best for Tank. Obviously, he loves Tennessee and, he gave his all for us. So hopefully he will get picked up by somebody. All right, now let's stay on defense and talk about Aaron Beasley. He's listed at 6'1", 225 pounds. The average size for an NFL linebacker is 6'2.5", 241 pounds, and running a 4.6 40. All right, so I don't know if Aaron Beasley is going to try to go into the NFL. I think that he should. I mean, there's no harm in trying. I think that someone may try to pick him up. He is a little bit light for an NFL linebacker. Don't know, really what his 40 time is going to be. I think that he can test better than that 4.6. He's really going to have to kind of like blow that out of the water because I think that at best he could probably come in at about 230 pounds. Maybe you could look at him as an outside linebacker body, and he's going to have really good numbers coming out of Tennessee. But, again, I don't think that the odds are really working in his favor because he wasn't a guy that had insane numbers. Okay, he didn't rack up a whole bunch of tackles, especially this last season. He's probably not like the best in pass coverage either, but I do think that if he tries out for a team or, if he at least does the pro day, all that, maybe someone will call him up to kind of be like a practice squad guy, maybe like a special teams type of a body. And, he could at some point maybe be able to earn his stripes as a linebacker. But I'm really hoping that Aaron Beasley will, try to go pro because, again, I think that someone somewhere will covet what his skill set is. All right, and the last player that we'll be talking about today that's going to be entering into the NFL draft is Ramal Keaton, listed at 6'3", 197 pounds, and the NFL average size for a wide receiver is 6 feet and a half, 199 pounds, and average 40 time is a 4.48. Now, I think that with Keaton, obviously he did not have a very good senior season, so it's going to be very tough for him. But I do think that obviously with his height, with his size, and I also think that with his speed, he could kind of get some teams interested in him. He's going to have to show that he can run some very crisp routes, okay, in whatever sort of a pro day, combine setting, Senior Bowl type of setting, whatever, that he gets to participate in. And he's also going to have to catch that football. And if he does that, then maybe a team will invite him to do like a personal workout or something like that. He's just going to have to be very, very consistent in running his routes, finishing his routes, and making catches on a consistent basis. Again, on top of, having the correct measurables and, his timing, his testing is going to have to be through the freaking roof for him to get picked up. So I'm rooting for Mr. Keaton, and I hope that someone does pick him up. I think that he's a little bit more of a long shot, kind of like Aaron Beasley, just because his senior season was not that great, and you would have wanted to see him produce a little bit more and be a little bit more consistent on the field. All right, and just for fun, if Spraggins would have entered into the draft this year, he's rated as the number 16 offensive guard on this list, number 291 overall, and he's got really good size. Now, also, someone who did leave this program is Gerald Mincey. He's the only other guy on our roster or, anywhere close to it that was also listed on this list. He's ranked as the number 36 offensive tackle, number 354 overall, and he definitely has great prototype size for an NFL offensive tackle. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Again, just kind of like a quick glance at, what one site has our guys rated at. And I will also keep a very close eye out on this site to see if they do update some more of our players onto their list of, top whatever players. I think that they go to top 600, and right now it's only at top 400. So some of these guys may end up getting in that final 200. That would be great to see. And we will definitely keep y'all up to date on all of the news surrounding Tennessee football. As always, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.